caught my best friend and fiancé sneaking around behind my back. I was standing at the kitchen counter, scraping the last bits of pancake batter from a bowl when my phone buzzed against the laminate. Sunday morning, same as always. The windows over the sink were gray with late winter light, the kind that makes everything look like it's held together with dust. I could smell the maple syrup warming on the stove and the coffee I never drink past noon. The cat was draped like a lazy scarf over the back of a chair, tail twitching at nothing in particular. He was humming to himself, setting the table. "Butter or no butter?" he asked, not looking up. He's always been the type to narrate cooking like it was a game show, and I used to tease him about being the king of mismatched plates. He grabbed the floral one we got at a yard sale and set it on my side. The heat kicked on, a rattle and then a steady breath through the vents. I felt calm, ordinary. If you had taken a snapshot, it would just look like any couple making breakfast in a small rental with perpetually crooked blinds. That morning feels like a photograph I've studied too long. I know where the crumbs were on the counter, the tennis ball-sized dent in the couch, the faint smudge of flour on his jaw. He was wearing the gray t-shirt with the little pocket he likes. I was in my pajama pants with tiny lemons on them and one of his hoodies because my shoulders were cold. We were 3 months out from our wedding. We had a date, a deposit paid for the venue, my dress hanging in my closet in a plastic garment bag like a ghost. He asked me if I'd texted Sophia about the florist. "I'll call her after breakfast," I said, flipping the first pancake and feeling that satisfying release as it loosened. She was supposed to meet me at the bridal boutique next weekend for a final fitting, too. We've been best friends since we were 15. She was the one who drove me to my first real job interview because my car wouldn't start. When my dad got sick, she sat outside the hospital with me and broke her own no soda rule to drink vending machine Dr. Pepper because that's what I had in my hand. She knows where I keep my spare key. She has a toothbrush in the top drawer of my bathroom like it's nothing. Everything that comes next started with a normal day. The illusion that routines protect you from disaster. We ate. He cut his pancakes into neat squares. I drowned mine. He kissed my forehead on his way to the sink. The cat made a noise he only makes when sunlight hits his face. I told him I'd clean up, that he should go call his mom back because she'd texted last night and he'd ignored it, and he laughed like I was scolding him. He wandered into the living room to grab his laptop. My phone buzzed again. A calendar reminder. Meeting with planner Tuesday, 5 p.m. I clicked it away, set down the spatula, and turned the burner off. It's funny, the things your body notices before your brain. The way your chest tightens when something feels slightly off. The way a room can suddenly feel too big and too small at the same time. The way a name on a screen can feel like someone pressed a cold coin against your spine. The first red flag was small. A change in his schedule. Not even a lie. Working late, he'd say, and he would come home smelling like sawdust and fresh paint because the design firm had picked up a huge retail project and deadlines were tight. He'd show me mock-ups he was proud of. He seemed tired. Anyone would believe that story. And for a while, I did, because I wanted to. Because I loved him. Because 3 months before our wedding, you don't go hunting for reasons to blow it up. The second red flag was different. It came with a sound, a notification that sounded like a chirp, not his regular text tone. It would come when we were on the couch, my feet tucked under his thigh. He glanced down at his phone and tilted just slightly away from me. Not enough to be obvious, enough that I noticed, enough that my stomach twitched. I told myself I was being insecure. He's private, I thought. Everyone is entitled to a little privacy. The third red flag was scent. I hugged him and a trail of perfume I didn't own clung to the collar of his jacket. It wasn't overpowering, just a hint of something warm and sweet. I told myself he'd hugged a coworker goodbye. I told myself his office was full of people he didn't control. I told myself I was being silly. He's not a cheater, I thought, because that's not who he is, and because what kind of person betrays the person they are about to marry? There were other little things. Sophia canceled on me twice for wedding stuff. Once, she said she had a migraine. Another time, she texted me right as I was pulling into the deli we found together freshman year saying, "Work exploded, rain check, I'm so sorry." I didn't think anything of it. She's a nurse. Her schedule is chaos. We caught up the next day on FaceTime, where she lay on her bed in a messy bun and told me about a patient who brought cookies for the whole unit, and I told her about how the seamstress recommended taking in the bodice just a hair, and we laughed because who talks like that? I want to say that my instincts were screaming. I want to paint myself as the woman who saw it coming, who felt the ominous music swelling underneath her life, but the truth is, I muffled them. I tucked them under pillows, I fed them pancakes, and told them to be quiet because I had monogram napkins to order. And then, the plant. It showed up on a Wednesday, a trailing pothos in a pretty ceramic pot. I don't have a green thumb, but he'd been trying to fill the house with life. The label said Devil's Ivy, and I made a joke about the name. He laughed and put it on top of the bookshelf. I looked at the pot. A small sticker on the bottom said it came from that plant shop near Sophia's apartment. I didn't think anything of it. She'd recommended it before. Later that night, I climbed onto a chair to water it like he asked. The cat sat on the floor beneath me like my supervisor. When I lifted the pot, a small piece of paper was stuck to the wood. A gift receipt with a message printed on it. You're going to kill it, and I'm going to be mad when I have to come over and revive it. S. It could have meant nothing. It could have meant that my best friend was herself, sticking jokes where no one asked. I smoothed it flat with my thumb. It was dated last Friday, the day he said he'd had a late meeting. He'd come home after 10 p.m. that night. I'd been asleep. Friday night and a plant. A plant and a message. My best friend's initial like a smile I suddenly didn't recognize. I tucked the receipt into my pocket and got down from the chair. My heart thudded in a way that felt like a lie you tell your doctor. Normal. A little voice in my head whispered, "Stop. Don't go where you're going." I went anyway. I didn't have some elaborate plan. I didn't become a detective overnight. After dinner, he fell on the couch, flipped on a show, and started scrolling. He never had a passcode on his phone until recently, because he loses things and hates barriers. A month ago, he'd set one up after a coworker got their phone stolen, and there were security concerns. Again, normal. I understood. But that night, he put it on the coffee table and went to take a shower. I watched the steam creep out from under the bathroom door. I listened to the water patter. I felt that surreal detachment you get sometimes, like you're floating above your own head watching yourself make a bad choice. I picked up his phone. I should say, I have never looked at his phone before. I've never combed through anyone's phone. You always think you're the kind of person who doesn't do that until the day your hands are moving without you. It unlocked with Face ID when I held it up. I navigated to messages. My fingers were colder than they should have been. There was a thread pinned at the top with a name and a red heart. Not mine, not his mom, not anyone I recognized at first glance because it wasn't a name, it was a nickname. Sparks. I clicked. The conversation was months long. There was a world now that exists in my memory of gray bubbles and blue. His words, the punctuation I know, the dumb jokes, the sincerity. Hers. Things I don't want to repeat here because some of them are the kind of intimate that doesn't require explicit details to be heavy and humiliating. They weren't graphic. They didn't need to be. A photo of a hand holding a coffee cup I've seen in my kitchen. A picture of a doormat that said welcome-ish. A video of a streetlight in the rain with a caption, "This made me think of you tonight. Don't forget your umbrella." Her umbrella. My umbrella. There were timestamps, and the dates formed a timeline that made my stomach clench. They had pet names. There were inside jokes that spun out like threads that had existed for longer than I wanted to believe. He'd tell her when he was on his way home, and she'd say goodnight in a specific way that I've heard her say to me when we were teenagers, watching movies on her couch. The most innocuous lines were the ones that gutted me. "I miss your face. I can't wait to tell you about something, but I have to do it in person. I'm wearing that hoodie you like." Her nail polish in a photo was the same color I'd complimented at brunch. My eyes stung. The room tightened around me. My cat jumped onto the coffee table and stared at me with that unfathomable certainty cats have, like they've known for centuries that none of this matters, and yet also everything is sacred. I scrolled up farther because even that part of curiosity was cruel. December, October, there was a point where it shifted. On my birthday, she'd sent him a photo of the cake she'd made, and he'd responded with, "We're lucky to have you." We. That word pressed on my chest. There was a message from last Friday. "If you bring that plant over and it dies, I'm breaking up with you." Followed by a winky face, followed by, "Kidding. Kinda." He sent back, "Then I'll keep you alive so you can't. Deal?" I made a sound, A small animal sound, something I didn't know my throat could shape. The water was still running. He sings in the shower when he's happy, and he was murmuring, a shape of melody I couldn't place. I kept scrolling until I hit a photo that turned my skin to paper. My front porch, the chipped brick, the new wreath I'd put up with cheap eucalyptus and a bow, the caption, "I'm outside. Can you come down? Only a minute." The timestamp, 1 in the afternoon. The day I'd gone to the bridal salon for the first alterations, and she had canceled because she'd been held over at work. I dropped the phone. It bounced on the cushion and didn't even make a dramatic sound. The cat bolted, tail high. I wanted to run. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to crawl into the space under the kitchen sink and shut the door and live there forever with the cleaning supplies and the stale sponge smell. Instead, I stood up. I walked to the bathroom. I opened the door without knocking because it is my bathroom, in my house, and he looked up at me with water in his eyelashes and a startled, naked body that I have loved more than anything, and I said his name in a voice that was not mine. "Who is Sparks?" Everything slowed. He shut the water off. He didn't look confused. He did that thing he does when he's been caught, blinked too slowly. He grabbed a towel, wrapped it around his waist, and walked past me, dripping to the sink where he wiped his hands as if water was the problem. "Don't do this while I'm not dressed," he said. And I almost laughed, because what a ridiculous constraint for a disaster. "Who is she?" I asked, and I didn't say her name because if I did, the room would tilt. I thought if I said Sophia's name out loud in that sentence, I would break a glass with my voice. He reached for his phone. I was quicker. I held it behind my back like I was a teenager again, like we were playing a game. I saw the moment in his face when he realized I had already seen. His shoulders lowered by an inch. "It's not," he started, then stopped. He rerouted the sentence like he was editing a work email. We talk." "Don't insult me," I said. My teeth were chattering. He rubbed his eye with the heel of his hand. "I didn't want to hurt you." "Then why are you doing it?" I asked. My mouth was dry. "Why her?" He looked at the floor. "The floor needs mopping." I thought that. I thought about how the threshold is scuffed, and I wondered if that was this morning or last summer when we moved the couch. My brain does small things when big things happen. He said her name. He said, "Sophia." He said, "I don't know." We just started hanging out more after. He gestured vaguely in the direction of the past, the way men do when the specifics might incriminate them. It wasn't supposed to be anything. My heart was beating in my ears. "Hanging out?" I repeated, "like friends do? Like we did at 17 when we snuck into that movie theater and laughed so hard at the previews that they asked us to leave?" My brain was bleeding memories at me. Her on my couch with my cat on her lap. Her sending me memes at 2 a.m. Her arms around me the day I said yes. Squealing into my hair. Her hand holding mine when the doctor said the word benign, and we both cried from relief. He wrapped the towel tighter. He was shivering now, the steam dissipating into the hallway. The mirror had a smear of toothpaste on the corner. I fixated on it because it was easier than his face. "Did you sleep with her?" I asked. The word felt like broken glass in my mouth. "Have you—" I stopped myself from saying anything explicit because I didn't want to hear it. The implication was enough. I have never been a person who needed details to understand. He didn't answer right away. He shifted his weight. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked at me again, and this time there was a softness I recognize. The one he uses when he tells me he can't lie anymore about something small, like forgetting to replace the paper towels even though he said he did. "Yes," he said. And my body had a reaction separate from my mind. My hands went numb. My knees softened. The world went white at the edges. "When?" I asked. "How long?" He swallowed. His throat bobbed. "A while." "What is a while?" I said mechanically, like I was calibrating a machine. "Since October," he said. And that's when a whole season collapsed inside my chest. The month we picked the venue. The month my mother sent me her veil in the mail with a note that made me cry at the kitchen sink. The month Sophia held me while I cried about a nightmare I had where the cake melted in front of everyone. I sat down. My legs didn't ask permission. I sat on the closed toilet lid because I didn't trust them to hold me. He moved like he wanted to reach for me and then stopped, his hand hovering in the air like a bad idea. I flinched anyway. He noticed. "I'm sorry," he said, and the words were thin. They fluttered to the tile and died there. "I didn't mean to. It just, don't you dare," I said, and something like steel came into my voice. "Don't you dare tell me it just happened. You made call after call, you typed message after message, you got in your car and you drove, you told me you had a meeting and you had—" I held my hands up because I can't say it. I can't give it the dignity of a noun. "You did this. You. And her, my best friend." He put his face in his hands. He didn't cry. He willed himself to cry, I think. And nothing came. I wanted him to cry because I wanted to believe he was in pain. I wanted him not to cry because I wanted to be the only one suffering in the room. Both can be true. From the living room, a commercial jingle drifted in, stupidly cheerful. The world doesn't stop when yours does. It's offensive and also a relief. "How could you?" I whispered. I couldn't stop saying that in different permutations. He didn't answer. "Maybe there isn't one." "Does she love you?" I asked, and I could hear the hysteria under the calm, and I hated it. "Do you love her?" Is that what this is? Is this some epic fated thing? Because if it is, just say it and I will— My voice cracked. "I will get out of the way. I will move." He shook his head. "It's not that," he said. "It wasn't supposed to." He trailed off, and something like pity rose up in me, hot and disgusting, because he looked small and stupid. Because he looked like he'd built a wobbly tower of excuses and then tripped on nothing. "You're engaged," I said, a fact like a stone. "I am your fiancé." He touched the back of his neck, an old nervous tick. "I know," he said softly. "I know. I messed up." "Say the word," I said. "Say you cheated on me with my best friend." He flinched. "I cheated on you," he said, then added, quieter, "with Sophia." Hearing it out loud broke something in the air. It's like when you drop a glass and you know the sound is coming, but it still makes you jump. I made a sound, like my body was turning inside out. He reached for me again, and I said his name like a warning, and he stopped. "Are you in love with her?" I asked again, because that mattered, in some primal way that I can't explain. Quicker than a lie, he shrugged helplessly. I care about her," he said, "and maybe the truth isn't a clean line." "And the wedding?" I asked. "Were you going to just marry me and keep doing this?" He didn't answer quickly enough. That silence filled every corner of the bathroom and climbed the walls like mold. "Get out," I said, and my voice had a solidity that startled me. "Get out of the bathroom. Get dressed. Get out of my house." He stared at me, wet hair dripping, towel slipping an inch low. "I don't have—" he began, like maybe he'd say he has nowhere to go, and for a moment I saw the man I made pancakes for, the man who fixed my sink at midnight because the pipe under it sounded like it was burping, the man who learned my grandmother's cookie recipe by heart to make me feel less homesick. I swallowed around that because it is a trap. "You can go to your brother's," I said mechanically, "or a hotel, or the parking lot. I don't care." He opened his mouth. He closed it. He nodded. He moved like he was underwater. He went to the bedroom, left the damp footprints of a person being evicted by his own choices. He dressed. He put his laptop in his bag. He looked at me one more time like maybe there was a magic phrase that would make this a misunderstanding and not the end of my life as I knew it. He said, "I'm sorry," again at the door, and I did not say anything back, because sorry without an oxygen tank doesn't bring anything back from the deep. When he left, the apartment made a sound I have never heard it make. It exhaled. The cat jumped on the bench by the window and watched him go, ears forward. I shut the door, and locked it. I slid down the wood and sat on the rug and pressed my cheek to my knee like a child. I stared at the scuffed floor until my eyes made patterns out of the scratches. I did what you always say you won't. I called her. It rang. It went to voicemail. Her voice, bright and familiar. "It's Sophia." "Leave it after the beep." "Beep." I hung up. I didn't trust my own voice. I poured water into a glass. My hands shook so hard I spilled most of it on the counter. I wiped it up. Several minutes passed like that, me moving around the kitchen, doing small tasks because the big task was too large to pick up. I texted her instead. "Me. I know." She replied almost immediately. One word. "What?" "Me. You. Him." There was a pause that stretched like a wire between two buildings. She wrote back, "Can I call you?" I stared at that. I thought about the planet we were on last week when we sat in my car in the Target parking lot, singing to a dumb song. And I told her about my fear that I was becoming the kind of person who would lose herself inside marriage. She squeezed my shoulder and said, "You? Never." I thought about the day she met him, how she hugged him and whispered something in his ear that made him blush. I thought about how when she's anxious, she twirls a ring on her finger. I thought about the ring she left on my bathroom sink once, how I'd found it later and texted her a picture and she wrote back, "LOL, I'm a mess." "Don't call," I wrote. "Come here." "Now?" she sent back, and the baldness of that word made me want to throw the phone into the sink and run the water until it drowned. "Yes," I typed. "Now." My heart pounded so hard I had to sit down again. The house felt like it was preparing itself, like a body bracing for impact. I walked to the bedroom, and the first thing I saw was the garment bag. I thought about taking it down, burying it under the bed, but that felt too much like conceding to a story I hadn't agreed to yet. I was aware of the ring on my finger in a new way, like it was a splinter my skin couldn't push out. I slid it off, not dramatically, just with the mechanical care of someone untangling a knot. It left a pale band on my skin and a shadow of an indentation that made my stomach twist. I put it on the dresser. It looked ridiculous, sitting there among hairpins and a Scentsy warmer. I went back to the living room. I stared at the door. The cat fell asleep, oblivious. When she knocked, it sounded like any knock. Everything normal paints itself over disaster. I opened the door. She stood there in her blue scrubs and a coat, hair yanked back, face naked. She had a grocery store bouquet in her hand, the kind with dyed daisies that no one actually buys for an apology. She kept her eyes on my forehead. Classic Sophia. Eye contact only when she's sure she won't cry. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Come in," I said. She stepped over the threshold like it might bite her. She set the bouquet on the table, then thought better of it, then picked it up and set it on the counter. She stood with her hands in fists at her sides. We looked at each other. It went on too long to be a friend's stare. It became something else. She opened her mouth. "I'm sorry," she started, and I saw the realization in her eyes that the words were thin. Her face crumpled in a way I have seen only once before, when her mother called her to say her parents had split. I felt a reflex in my body that wanted to go to her, to hold her, to say, "I know," because she is the person I always turn to when I cry. The cruelty of that muscle memory enraged me. "How long?" I asked, because I needed to hear her version. "Don't soften it. I can take it." That's a lie. I could not. She twisted the ring on her right hand. No left-hand ring. That observation felt like spite. It started, she began, and we both said October at the same time, which is a moment that split me in half. My best friend and my fiancé in unison in my most hated month. "Why?" I asked, and my voice came out so small I barely recognized it. She shook her head. "I don't have a good answer. I was lonely. She trailed off, and I recognized in her the same scrambling he had, the story they hadn't finished writing. "We got close because of helping you with the wedding. It felt..." She bit her lip, hard. "It felt safe? Like a disaster I could control? I don't know. I know it's wrong. I know that. Safe, I repeated, and the word rang in my ears like a bell. You thought sleeping with my fiancé was safe. I'm not, she started, shaking her head, tears finally spilling. I'm not asking for you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve that. I know I should have told you the second I felt anything weird. I kept telling myself I would, and then I didn't, and it got bigger. And then I thought after the wedding I'd stop, that he'd stop, that I could compartmentalize it like it never happened. I laughed, a sharp sound I didn't mean to make. The cat startled awake and ran under the couch. After, I said, after what? After you stood next to me and held my bouquet and fixed my veil? After you toasted us? After you danced with him and we all pretended you weren't thinking about. I swallowed the words. She flinched. I know, she whispered. I know. I am a terrible person. I've been saying that to myself every night. You should have said it to me, I said, even though that would have hurt sooner. Even though earlier pain is still pain. You were supposed to be the one person I could trust. You, of all people. She dragged a hand down her face. There's no defense, she said. I hurt you. I did the one thing I swore I would never do. I don't know how to make it better. You can't, I said, and the truth of that settled in the room like dust. You can't make it better. I felt tired, bone-deep tired. I wanted to crawl into a bath and sink until the water turned cold and my fingers shriveled. I wanted someone who was not either of them to make me soup and put my phone on Do Not Disturb and tell me when to get up. I'll tell him it's over, she said quickly. I'll block him. I'll take a job 3 towns over. I don't care. You tell me what you need me to do and I'll do it. I looked at her. My friend. Her eyes were red. Her lips were chapped. Her hair was crooked. She looked like the same girl I met in gym class when we both pretended to have cramps to get out of mile day and then later admitted neither of us did. She looked like a stranger who'd broken into my house wearing her skin. What I need, I said, and the words were careful. What I need is for you to get out of my house. And then maybe the next day, and the next. I can't see you. I can't hear your name. I can't. I gestured around because I didn't have a better verb than can't. I don't know. I don't know what I need after that. But step 1 is that. She nodded like a person taking a prescription they don't like. Okay, she whispered. She turned. She took 2 steps. She turned back. If you ever want to talk, if you ever want to scream at me. Her voice broke. I will pick up. I will stand still. I stared at the space on the wall where the painting we were going to buy would have gone. I don't know if I will ever want to look at you again, I said, and saying that to her felt like ripping out a piece of myself and handing it to her and saying, look what you did. She flinched like I'd hit her, which I did not. Violence would have been a relief. It would have given me something to do with my hands. I unclenched them. I watched her go. She paused at the door like she might say something poetic and redemptive. She did not. She closed it behind her, and I stood there and listened to her footsteps fade down the stairs. I walked to the sink. I poured myself a glass of wine because it was there and because I needed my hands to do something. I had a drink to calm down, and then I poured it out because it didn't taste like anything and it felt too heavy in my stomach. Then the quiet came. It wasn't the good quiet. It was the quiet you hate. The quiet you want to fill with noise so you don't hear your own thoughts. The quiet where you begin to trace every memory for clues you missed and blame yourself for not being psychic. I thought about warning signs that look like normal life. I thought about the way betrayal doesn't arrive with a trumpet. It arrives in small packages, in plants and screenshots, in the lilt of someone's voice when they say work was crazy. It comes in inside jokes that you are not inside of. It comes in silence. My phone was on the table, face down. It buzzed. He, the man I was going to marry, wrote, I'm at Mike's. I want to talk when you're ready. He added a second message. I love you. I stared at those words until my eyes hurt. I thought about love as an action, not a feeling. I thought about how many actions I would have to untangle now. I opened my laptop like a person in a movie who is too composed to cry. I Googled Wedding cancellation deposit. I opened a new note labeled to do and wrote call venue, call photographer, ring insurance, tell my mom, tell his mom, book therapy. I added move his stuff into the hall. The list grounded me like an anchor. It also made me want to throw my laptop out the window. I texted my sister a question mark and then, can you talk? She called me immediately. I didn't speak for a full minute. She just breathed on the other end. A tether. When I did speak, the words tumbled over each other like the beginning of a storm. She listened. She swore for me, substituting the words I can't write here with expletive and unbelievable, and I am going to, no, okay, I will not, but I want to. She told me to come stay with her. I told her I wanted to sit in my house and look at things for a while. I didn't tell her about the ring on the dresser yet. I wasn't ready to say that part out loud. It's been hours and also no time at all. The light through the blinds has shifted from gray to the kind that makes the dust look almost pretty. I haven't eaten. The pancakes sit cold on plates that won't match anymore. The cat is sleeping in a sunbeam, doing his job in a world where everything else is upside down. I don't know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to marry him in 3 months like nothing happened. I'm not going to text her back tonight. I'm not going to pretend this is fixable because it's not a broken cabinet or a wrong order at a restaurant. It's betrayal. It's two people who were supposed to be my safety net pulling it taut and letting me fall through. But here is the part I didn't expect. There is a small, stubborn part of me that is proud. Proud that I asked him to leave. Proud that I didn't slap anyone, that I didn't call someone's boss and ruin a job, that I didn't torch my own life out of spite. Proud that I am writing this down, that I am reaching out to strangers on the internet like a person with a hand above water. It feels both humiliating and brave. We haven't told our families. The deposits are still sitting with my money attached. The dress is still hanging, quiet and heavy. The ring is still on the dresser, catching light like it has nothing to do with any of this. He might call again. She might text again. Or they might both go silent. I don't know which is worse. I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight. My sister says she'll come get me. Part of me wants to let her. Part of me wants to sit here in my house and absorb the new shape of it, alone. I keep thinking of that plant. It's up there on the bookshelf, trailing vines, unaware. It will not know who bought it. It will only live or die based on whether it is watered. Maybe in the morning I'll bring it down and split it into 2 pots. Maybe I'll throw it away. Maybe I'll leave it there and watch whether it thrives under my care alone. I don't know yet. I told him I need time. He said he'll give it. I don't want gifts from him anymore. If you've read this far, thank you. I don't know what I'm asking for. Advice? Stories of how you survived this and came out with your heart intact? Reminders to eat food and drink water? Tips on canceling things without losing my entire savings? How to tell my mom, who is so excited to lend me her veil? I keep finding my hand on my chest, pressing like I can hold all of this inside. It leaks between my fingers anyway. I thought I would feel rage. White hot and wild. And I do, in bursts. But mostly what I feel is a grief that is quiet and huge, like a room that used to be full and is now empty. I want to promise future me that she will be okay. I want to promise present me that the worst is happening now and not later in a more public, more humiliating way. I want to believe that I am strong enough to leave this behind me. I want to believe that love, real love, honest love, won't do this. He texted again while I was typing this. Please don't post about this. I stared at that for a long time. The irony almost made me choke. He kept my life a secret for months. Now he wants privacy. The door is locked. The house is quiet. The plant is green. The ring is a circle that looks like forever, and suddenly it looks like a trap. I don't know yet if we're over forever. I don't know yet if friendship can be resurrected when it's been strangled in the dark. I don't know if she and I will ever be in the same room again. I don't know if he and I will sit across from a therapist and untangle this, or if I will pack his things into boxes tomorrow and change my locks. I don't know if the garment bag will leave this house unworn. I don't know if I will donate it to someone else's fairy tale and walk away lighter. I just know that this morning we ate pancakes and I thought my life was one thing, and tonight it is another. And I am somewhere in the middle of that bridge, not sure if it will hold. TLDR. Found months of messages revealing my fiancé has been cheating with my best friend. Confronted both, told him to leave, told her to go, and now I'm deciding what to do about the wedding and everything else.